Hi everybody and welcome back. This video is being made by quite a few requests on could I do a tour of the fly-in I attended last week called SEFF. And SEFF is in Americus, Georgia, and depending on the year, it's the second or third largest fly-in in the United States. The biggest is always Joe Nall, and SEFF and Neat Fair always are kind of like head-to-head depending on years. On the SEFF's biggest years, it was like 400 plus pilots, and to me that was just too big. For me personally, if it's between 200 and 250 pilots, it's a perfect fly-in because there's just not too much going on in the air. This year, I think we had 208. I might be wrong, but it was really close to that, which was a perfect year. This is one of the best years of SEFF we had. I mean, as far as I can remember. I mean, it wasn't too hot. It was a little bit windy on a couple of days. We didn't have hardly any rain, or I think any rain that I can remember. And it was just a perfect year. But before I get babbling too much, let's dive into what I'm going to talk about. So this is the Mac Hodges Fields. It's actually a full-scale airport. He flies his RV. I think it's a 4 in and out of here. Might be a 6. I think it's a 4. And Cubs come in and out of here, all kinds of planes. There are a lot of RC radio control fly-ins here. There's Warbird fly-ins. There's, of course, SEFF. There's one in the fall, which is really, it's like a mini SEFF. I can't remember what it's called, but it's really cool. I haven't attended that. I want to. It's just, you know, it's a 12-hour drive each direction for me. But this is really cool, and I'm going to dive into what all of this means. Before I get there, I want to talk about my sponsor, RTL Fasteners. They're absolutely really cool. And if you need any bolts, nuts, blind nuts, washers, lock washers, any of that stuff, servo screws, go to rtlfasteners.com. Use the top secret code DA30, and you can get 30% off your order if you spend more than $50. Okay? So let's get back into the show. So this is the Mac Hodges Field. Let's zoom in a little bit more here. So basically, what we're going to talk about is what's at SEFF and the flight lines and stuff like that. So on this end of the field is about a 900-foot-ish runway, and you can have multiple pilots flying down here. This is kind of a cool place to go down. You know, you should never test fly at a event like an AMA type sanctioned event, because test flying is just a no-no. You don't know if your airplane's going to go crazy and go into trailers or go into the audience or whatever. But this is an area if you want to go down and just have some quiet time and just fly. You know, if it's a powered glider, a glider, could be drones. If you just don't want to be in the middle of some of the excitement, this is a great place to go. This is I think a 2,000-ish foot runway, which is, all the grass here is about a ½ inch tall. Anything down to about an inch diameter tire could get off if you got enough thrust, but you know, if you got enough power, a brick would fly. This is just basically the two big flying areas at SEFF. Okay, to kind of give you a scale of it, in that little circle there is my tent, or my hangar as I call it. And if you zoom in, you can see the little yellow wing there. That's actually a 188-inch electric airplane called the MSL-2. This gives you an idea just how big this place is, and it's awesome. If you like to fly off water, this is the pilot stations for the float flying people. I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a minute, because I've had some people say that there's a lot of dangerous stuff that happens at SEFF, and that's kind of rubbish. But I'm going to dive into that in a minute. Over here is a big covered area where the SEFF staff sets up their raffles and check-in and registration, and they've got their sound system set up there that talks to the entire property, and that's kind of like mission control right there. The next important place is is the hot showers and bathrooms, and there's always clean bathrooms and hot water. I've never seen the hot water run out, but there's 2 or 3 showers there, so if you're camping, you've got really nice facilities there. The rest of that building is actually a shop and hangar for Mac Hodges' ultralights. He keeps his ultralights in that building too, and it's a really cool place. Then over here you have another covered area, and that's where they set up the food for SEFF. There was always breakfast and lunch. Katie's Soul Food is the people that cooks the food for us, and it's terrific food. Now I'm going to talk about flying patterns. it's very easy at any time of the day, even if it's 6 in the morning, the sun's coming up, you can come out there. If you're the only person in the field, I've seen people fly without spotters, okay? But normally you have a spotter, and you can just kind of pick whatever pattern you want to fly that time. Just communicate with other fellow pilots and basically make sure that you're all just being safe. Just, you know, your spotter needs to be watching other airplanes, not your airplane. I want to do a class on being a spotter, and I might do a video one day on being a spotter, because you know, my spotter should never ever be watching my airplane, and we should always be talking about what's in the sky. Now, when I fly my big airplane, I primarily fly this big pattern, and the reason I fly this is it keeps me from ever flying over the heads of the float people. Anybody over at that float flying station, I'm never over their head. And I'm very religious about not flying over people's heads. And I would say most people at SEFF would either fly over the middle of the lake or over the trees. We do our best not to ever fly over people's head. The float flying people will fly a pattern very much like this. Normally they're over the water or just off the ends of the water. They've got a bigger float flying plane. They might fly this. And there has been a couple of times that my spotter says, hey, you got a float plane, you know, flying, you know, basically down the main runway. And I'm like, okay, where's it at? High, low, left, right. And, you know, so very rarely is there a midair with all that. Sometimes you've got 12 to 15 planes in the air, and we've only had 1 or 2 midairs each year. So unless we're trying to do like a, you know, Hound and Hare or Combat or something like that, where we're trying to have midairs. If you really want to have unlimited room, you can go down this end of the field and fly over that entire cornfield. I mean, so I don't know if you can see your airplane with it that far out there, but, you know, people have said to me, well, you know, at SEFF, you know, people are, you know, there's just not enough room. And I'm like, you've never been to SEFF. There's always room at SEFF to fly an airplane. So what we're going to do today is this little red line is the tour I took on a really cool little electric scooter that's highly modified. My friends Berger and Dean, they let me use their golf carts and their scooters when I'm there. And this scooter's got a little trailer on the back that we can set an airplane on and take it from like the, what we call the Taj Mahal, which is the trailer that, you know, we stay in when we're at SEFF. I'm super lucky that my friends invite me to stay in a 54-foot trailer that's got, I mean, it's like a condominium. But, I digress all the time. I'm sorry. So the thing is that this is the track that we're going to take. So let's get going and me quit babbling, okay? So what we're going to do is right here, I've got my GoPro on my head, and that's the scooter and the trailer. And this is my trailer to the right, and I'm backing up, and no, I don't have a reverse beeper on it, so people know I'm backing up. And right now I'm going to take you through kind of what I call the backside of the main line a little bit here. This is a lot of trailers and trucks. A lot of these trailers are still full of airplanes. So when you see all the airplanes on the flight line, on the right here is my friend Chris's trailer. And I wouldn't normally cut through somebody's trailer like that, but he knows me and he doesn't give a crap if I drive through there. So right now, oh, and there's hookups. I think both 30 and 50 amp hookups for a lot of these trailers. And I know they're trying to expand. But, and there's water, you know, whatever. And they have a pumping service come through twice a week to pump out your sewage. Both your gray and black water, I think, as they call it. And as we get down here to the end, it is really peaceful and quiet. Now, I do stop the video here for just a brief moment and restart it because my camera was starting to fall off my head. And we're going to pause here for a second. So right here, right now, there's only, I think, 1 or 2 people flying down here. And this is like 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon. And, you know, a lot of people are getting ready for dinner. But it's just a really nice, and there's hardly any wind this day. This is another thing is, if the wind's out of the south, you can fly on this windway. If it's out of the east or west, you fly on the other runway. You can always normally find a way to fly into the wind. Now, I don't care where the wind's coming from because I know how to fly in crosswinds. And with my big airplane, it's just some rudder and brakes and off I go. So this is about 900 feet. And here's some people getting ready to take to the air. And it's just all around an incredibly cool place to fly, everybody. If I won the lottery, I would create a place just like this. So we're going to stop here. Across to my left is the lake. And you can, I think that's a plane in the air, a float plane that's flying over the water over there. And as we get started back up here, we're going to stop here on the right and look at a really cool Bronco. I think that's one of the flight test type materials, or it might actually be a flight test airplane, but there was an F-18 and a Bronco that was made out of that brown cardboard as foam stuff, which were really cool. So you go down through here, there's a lot of airplanes on the right, flying on the left. And keep in mind, this is 2,000 feet long, or 1,900 feet long here. We're going to stop here for a minute. These three tents on the right is kind of the area where I hang out with everybody. The white one down there on the end, we'll stop at it, is mine. But this is a whole bunch of really cool guys from Florida that bring up like 50 or 100 airplanes. There's my MSL2 and my hangar, as I call it. The front two poles of my tent pop out, and I built like a suspension bridge thing to hold up the front of my tent. And then we got Horizon Hobby, really cool cats. I mean, awesome guys and girls, super friendly, super friendly. Then we have my favorite, and I know you're not supposed to have favorites in the corporate world, but Flex Innovations. I fell in love with an airplane, and I'm going to do a video about the story of a Cessna 170 and how it became my new child. Then you got all these other people with their cool stuff. Atlanta Hobbies was there. Just really neat stuff. For some reason, nobody set up their tents there. I think they thought it was like the Bermuda Triangle, but there could have been tents set up there. We got more airplanes. Now, if you watch, a little bitty airplane flies right in front of me, right into one of these tents right there. And I'm like, whoa, that was cool. What was that? I'm looking around like, am I interrupting? So I just keep going. And down here is a phenomenon that if you don't get the proper birth control for your airplane, you end up with this mess down here. So Mama Airplane didn't practice birth control and gave birth to all of these babies. And I'm kidding, of course. But this is what's cool about SEFF. You drive up on a gaggle of like 50 airplanes just all sitting piled up on the ground. And I tell you, this to me is like just absolute crack cocaine. And not that I've done any drugs, but SEFF, if I did drugs, SEFF is heroin. So going back down through here, the reason I like this is trailers back here, when you look in them, are still full of airplanes. They're not all out in the flight line. It is crazy how many airplanes are at SEFF, and just the cool airplanes. I love the small planes, the big planes. I love anything. If it flies, you're a rock star to me. If it's a drone, you're a rock star. You know, I love anything that is piloted, radio controlled by a person. Now, as we come up here, we're coming up on Mac's old hobby shop, which is now his hangar for all of his ultralights. We got an ultralight sitting there that had a Kawasaki 440 in it. I think it was for sale for $6,800. And then here on the left is the building that has the showers and the bathrooms. On the overhang on the left is what I told you where the SEFF staff sets up. On the right is a vehicle I'm going to steal one day full of airplanes from Flex. They got really cool airplanes. We're passing by Show Center, and then we're going to pull back into my trailer right here. And the MSL's sitting out there in her hangar ready to fly because my batteries were charged, and I got a bunch more really cool flights in. So everybody, that is kind of a tour of SEFF. And one of the things that I love about SEFF is there's hardly any ego. I've never run into ego. Sometimes there is, I'm trying to be so honest. I don't want people to ever think I'm going to feed you a line of BS. I want it to be straight from my heart, and I want you to understand that anything on my channel is going to promote kids flying RC. It's going to promote being positive. It's going to promote being happy. And aviation is the gateway drug to engineering, to physics, to all kinds of things. You know, if you look at Burt Rutan and Hoot Gibson, the shuttle pilot, you look at some of these people that their entire lives. Actually, if you go back and there's a book about the X-15 and you listen about some of the people in the X-15 program, they all started out with rubber-powered model aircraft. So the thing is that model aviation is the gateway drug to being awesome. And it doesn't hurt. Chicks dig pilots, okay? So I don't know how to get across to you, but I'm trying to think if there's anything negative. I mean, there were a couple of times at SEFF, we ask everybody to stand 15 feet out from the flags to fly, and then fly your planes 50 feet out. Once in a while, somebody would be flying in close. So I would stand back at the flags. And one time somebody hollered at me, hey, you're supposed to stand 15 feet out. And I said, then fly 50 feet out because I don't want you to hit me. Now, I don't think they would have hit me. But if I had to pick one thing at SEFF this year that rose to being a little bit of tension, it was, keep in mind when people fly little bitty electrics, okay, and I'm talking like a foot long, they like to hand launch it and they like to fly literally 5 feet in front of them, okay? But then they fly, let's say, a Flex airplane or a Horizon Hobby type airplane or one of the big E-flight planes, and they still fly 10 feet in front of them. That's dangerous. So as a pilot, you know, and I've been accused in my life because I grew up flying control line airplanes. So I was accused back in the 80s and 90s when I flew RC Glow Power that I flew too close to me. And it took a conscious effort for me to stay at least 50 feet out. And when I fly my giant scale airplanes, I'm flying them 75 to 100 feet out from me. But flying electric sometimes, especially if you've flown indoor, and then you go to an event like SEFF, it's really easy to want to fly close to yourself. And you're going to have to consciously make sure that you're flying out. And there's no need for flight stations at SEFF because it's so long. And if you got a spotter and you stand out that 15 feet from the flags and fly at least 25 to 50 feet in front of you, that's the safest way to do it. But once in a while, and last year we had a guy that would like come barreling right in 100 mile an hour right at himself because he was videotaping in turn, and he was not invited back because he would not stay that 25 or 50 feet out. And he was a jerk. But yeah, I mean, that's SEFF, everybody. And it's an awesome fly-in. To me, every year, I try to schedule my life. And I mean, I know that sounds harsh sometimes, but of course, families first, work, but I try to schedule every other RC event in my life around SEFF. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it went a little bit longer. I was trying to keep this like 15 minutes. Oh well, failed again. Make sure you keep kids involved in model aviation. Excuse me. Putting a 10-year-old in front of Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto and letting them murder people all day is probably not the best way for them to have a great academic future or a great future of not being a mass murderer. Model aviation prevents mass murders. So rock on, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.